Dalit of Torah. This week is L'schus, Rabbi Cornhouse and family. We're learning the maamar of Vayigash, and we're going to go through the entire Vayigash today, Daf Mem Dalit. So we're starting actually on the end of Daf Mem Gimel, which is where Vayigash begins, and then going all the way until the top of Memhei, where Vayigash ends. So the pasuk says, Vayigash elav Yehudah, that Yehudah came close to Yosef, and this was when they were worried that they're going to lose another brother, they're going to lose Binyamin, and Yehudah had promised Yaakov that I will bring him back. Vayomer, so Yehudah says to Yosef, Bi Adoni, please, my master, let me be a slave instead and let Binyamin go home. So now, to understand this confrontation and this coming close, that Yehudah comes close to Yosef, what does it mean spiritually? So let's look at the difference between the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash. The pasuk says in Shir Hashirim that Keres Batena Arzim, that the pillars of our house is made of cedar wood. And what does this refer to? This refers to the Mishkan, that the Mishkan was built primarily out of wood that was coated with gold, and it had animal hides covering, but the main material was cedar wood. Now, if we look at the difference between the Beis Hamikdash and the Mishkan, we'll see that the Beis Hamikdash is made of stone and dirt, whereas the Mishkan is made of wood and with covers made of animal hides. In the Beis Hamikdash, there was not allowed to be any visible wood, and there was only the some wood in the ceiling, and there was some decorative wood, but basically there was almost no wood. Why with the Mishkan is wood the main components, whereas in the Beis Hamikdash it was almost not present at all. And why with the Beis Hamikdash is dirt and stone so important? So the explanation is through first thinking about how there's Domem, so מהחי medaber, that there's inanimate, then things that grow, like plant life and trees, then animals, and then humans. And each one has more chayas, more godly energy and vitality. And therefore, the domem, which it seems to be totally dead, it's inanimate, so that represents the lowest spiritual level. And as we go up through each level with more and more life force, it's tzomeach, it's able to grow, but it can't move around, and it doesn't have desires. And then we have animals that it wants certain things and it can run around, so it's greater and it's more alive, closer to spiritual. And then humans who have a lot of other gifts, conscience and the ability to sort of think outside of themselves. And so the domem is the lowest level, the inanimate. But despite that, it also has an advantage over the higher levels. And that's why the tzomeach grows from the domem. Why is it that plants grow from earth, that you plant the seed in earth and that's how it grows? Seemingly, if the vegetation has a higher source, it shouldn't need to come on to the lower level of inanimate. But the reason is because inanimate has a higher source. This is similar to the fact that humans eat food from lower sources, in other words, vegetation, animals, and inanimate. That's because they also have a higher source, like we explained elsewhere. That we explained that teho, the elim is the source of these other the more physical parts of the world, and therefore humans eat from them. Okay. So it's the same thing here, that Domem has a higher source than tzomeach. This relates to the machlekas, the argument of the Tanoim, the sages of the Mishnah, which is in Chagiga, that they argue what came first. Did heaven come first or earth come first? So on one hand, the very first pasuk in the Torah says, so first is shamayim and then aretz, heaven comes first. On the other hand, at the end of the story of creation, it says that on the day that Hashem created eretz v'shamayim, it first says eretz, earth, and then shamayim, and then heaven. So what came first? So the answer is that they're both right. That on one hand, in concept, in thoughts, earth came first, but practically heaven came first. And therefore, both of them are higher than each other. And so that's the same as what we said about Dom, that although Domem is the lowest in terms of its spiritual level, but in terms of its source, Domem is actually higher. And that's why it is able to allow the trees to grow. Next paragraph, now, in the Mishkan, although it was a place where Hashem's presence was manifest, it was only temporary. And therefore, it was still within Hishthalshalos, still within the regular chain of levels. Like the pasuk says that Hashem was Misalech ba'ov Mishkan. Hashem was just passing through, is traveling through the Mishkan. And it was only temporary, and therefore it kept Shamayim first, the heavens first, and therefore it uses vegetation and avoids inanimate. And so the walls of the Mishkan are made of wood. Only the earth is made of dirt. And then the roof is made of animals. It's made of animal hides. So it's in order of Hishthalshalos from the lowest level to the highest level. And this is why Chai, the animal life, was specifically the Yehudah, which were on the roof, the curtains which were hanging, they were covering the whole roof and then going down over the walls. So that's a level of makif that was surrounding the Mishkan, and that came from animals, which is the highest of these three forms of life: animals, vegetation, and inanimate. So this is all within the regular order of things, where Shamayim, where the spiritual is greater than the physical. But the Beis Hamikdash, which is the ultimate purpose of creation, so that's the set place for Hashem to rest. Like the pasuk says, this is my place where I could rest forever. And therefore, in the Beis Hamikdash, the earth is the main component. It's mostly stone and earth, and that's because earth, which is the level of bittul and of being the makabel of receiving, is revealed to be actually of a high spiritual caliber, and that is what the pasuk means. That a woman of valor is the crown of her husband. That the woman feminine energy is makabel, and that's like earth. And with Mashiach, when after Mashiach comes with a rectified world, it will be revealed how the makabel malchus is actually greater in terms of its source. And therefore, in the Beis Hamikdash, it's mostly made of earth and stone. There's just a little bit of wood, which is supporting the Mishkan, and that is the ultimate, where we see how the source of the physical and source of the makabel is greater than what seems to be a higher spiritual light. Next paragraph. So we see another advantage of the earth over other parts of creation, in that the earth lets everything step on it and it doesn't affect it. You step on flowers, you ruin them. You step on an animal, the animal bites you. You step on the earth, stepped on the earth, no big deal. That's normal. And that's a sign of bittul of earth. And this comes to earth because it has a higher spiritual source. We say that in machshava, earth was first. Now, the word machshava has in it actually the first and last letter of machshava is ma, which is bittul, like Moshe Rabbeinu said, "V'nachnu ma," we are what? We are nothing. We're nullified. And from Moshe's statement, "V'nachnu ma," what are we? We're just ma. We're nothing. So that is where the quality of earth, the advantage of earth, is revealed throughout the world, and allowing the Beis Hamikdash to be built out of stone. So, and that's why the Gemara says about Koresh that he messed up, he did something wrong, because he commanded that they mix in more wood pillars than they had wanted, because really the Beis Hamikdash should be all made of stone, like we explained, because it's all about realizing that the source of Domem, the source of the inanimate, is actually higher. And this idea of bittul that the earth has is reflected in Shemona Esrei, which is said quietly. And this is also the reason we bound Shemona Esrei on the other hand in the Mishkan, which is within his shalshalos, within the regular chain of worlds. So there, vegetation is above Domem. And therefore in the Mishkan, the bulk of the Mishkan was made of live things, of either trees or animal products. Next paragraph in Zeu. Now this is also the style of Yosef versus Yehudah. So Yosef is the idea of Shamayim. The word Yosef means to grow and to add. And that's what Yosef does, that he grows and he adds and he represents the Yosef is called the Yosef HaTzadik. Like the pasuk says about Tzadik, about the righteous, it says Tzadik Hatam Yifrach, that the righteous grows like a date palm, K'erez Balvan and Yiska, that he goes up like a cedar in the Lebanon forest. So we see this idea that Yosef, who's called Tzaddik, is always growing. And actually, it says elsewhere that the flag of the tribe of Yosef was green, representing this idea of growth. Then, on the other hand, we have the concept of Yehudah. Yehudah comes from the word Haidah, humility, and just admitting acceptance and being thankful. And Yehudah is therefore the Oret, the earth, because of his bittul, his self-nullification. And this is the idea of we say about the Mitzvah brings 8 eres v'ezo, that he brings both the tallest tree and the smallest bush. And this is, therefore, Yosef is connected to this idea of the eras of the cedar tree, and Yosef in terms of the spheres is Yesod. Yesod is the giver, but it's also which is the idea of Yosef is the giver and rather not the receiver, like Arts which is the receiver, and which is Yehudah, and also Yesod is in the middle. So it goes up to Das and to Tiferes, to Das, and higher still to K'ser. On the other hand, Yehudah is Aretz, the earth, which is Malchus, and therefore Yehudah is the idea of Haidah, of admitting and thanksgiving, of bittul, of self-nullification, which the inanimate has the most humility and self-nullification, like we said before, letting everyone and everything step on it. Next. Now, the paragraph begins with Hinei b'seidei shalshalos. So now, nowadays, and throughout the times of exile all the way until Mashiach, so Yosef's on top. And that's why Yosef had a bigger kingdom. The kingdom of the 10 tribes was under Yosef. It was bigger than the kingdom of the 2 tribes. And that's also why, so Yosef is the one who's king, the viceroy, and Yehudah is coming to Yosef. But that's only how it is nowadays. But when Mashiach comes, so then there'll be advantage of Yehudah over Yosef, just simple action greater than deep intent and understanding. And that's the idea of Eishes Chal Teres Baila, that a woman of valor is the crown of her husband, meaning that she reaches above. And the idea of Eishes Chal is the makabel, is like earth and the practical, because Chachma is bittul. Chachma just allows the subconscious through. Malchus is also bittul. But the difference is that Chachma is at the beginning of the story, Malchus is at the end. So Malchus is like simple action, whereas Chachma is the bittul to allow the neshama to voice its opinion. Leah says that Abba Yosef Brata, that Abba, the father, which is Chachma, founds and brings us to the daughter, which is Malchus. There's a special connection between Chachma, the first of the spheres, and Malchus, the end. Both of them relate to bittul. Like we said, Chachma is letting the subconscious express itself, and Malchus is simple obedience, being the recipient, getting a task done. And therefore, they both, Yira law is in Chachma, and then the simple bittul, which is the basic Yira, is in Malchus. And that's why Moshe, just like with Moshe, that he said for Nachnoma, that what are we? Because Moshe was at this level and the realm of full bittul. Now, in the Haftarah, we have the end of the story. Yecheskel tells that Hashem said to take one piece of wood and write it on Yehudah, then take another piece of wood and write it on Yosef, and bring them together. And then Dovid will be king forever. So what's the explanation? That in the times of Galus, where Hashem's presence is not revealed, so then Yosef is higher, because Yosef is intellect and emotions, all these high things, whereas Yehudah is simply doing what needs to be done, action. So throughout Galus, Yosef is higher, and therefore he had, like we said, he had the bigger kingdom. And like it says elsewhere, not in this maamar, there's a difference between how they sinned as well. The kingdom of Yosef sinned with idolatry, whereas the kingdom of Yehudah sins with doing the wrong thing because of just a sudden desire, and in particular related to sexual relations. So Yosef is more intellectual all round, whereas Yehudah is more earthy, more practical, more physical. Now, so Yosef and Yehudah coming together is this idea of bringing together the sort of the intellect and emotions together with the simple bittul. And this is why when Mashiach comes, it says that Dovid HaMelech will be the one to lead the benching. Why? Because Dovid represents this simple bittul, the simple self-nullification, and represents the Eishes Chal Teres Baila, the woman of valor, who's the crown of her husband. And because that's the idea of Dovid, Dovid represents Malchus. So that's why Dovid will lead the benching when Mashiach comes. So now, based on this, we'll understand final paragraph of the maamar V'chol na yuvan. So with this, we'll understand what the Arizal says in Likutei Shas, that Hashem says to Yeravam, do teshuvah and you'll come close to me. So Yeravam says, okay, so what's going to happen? And he tells him that that you and I and Ben Yishai will all go on a stroll in the garden together. So Yeravam ben Nevat responded, Mi b'roich, who will go first? Well, who will be closer to Hashem? Will it be Dovid and then Yeravam, or Yeravam and then Dovid? Because if it is Dovid and then Yeravam says, I'm not interested. I only want to go if I'll be first. So the idea is that Yeravim didn't have proper bittul, and therefore he needed to be in charge, otherwise it couldn't exist. Whereas the idea of Dovid and the idea of Malchus, the idea of Yehudah, is all about bittul. And therefore that lack of bittul got rid of it, destroyed Yeravim. So now we understand the maamar, we understand the idea of Yehudah coming forward to Yosef. It's the idea of bringing together, fusing together bittul with the emotion and intellect. And that's the idea of the base of Mikdash, where we have most of the base of Mikdash being built from stone and dirt, which is another celebration of the lower and of Malchus, and that's also what we suggest at the end regarding Yeravim versus Dovid, that Yeravim is intellect, whereas Dovid is Malchus, is simple action, and with Mashiach they'll come together, but the higher one, the ultimate, is the side of action, the side of Yehudah. That concludes the maamar.